Well, you would never know it by an opening scene like this that we're going to be interviewing Paula Noel from the great state of Florida. But I had to highlight the fact, if you somehow missed it, that on Saturday we had National Oreo Day. And if you missed it, then you got to pick up some Oreos and celebrate it belatedly, because you know what? It's never too late to celebrate Oreos. You know what I mean? And so I've got these out by Pete and Amy's 201-2 that at the end of this process today, I'm probably going to do a little bit of sewing on it just to kind of check it out. Not officially on camera, not through a full scope of sew-offs, but I'm going to do a little bit of sewing on it just so we can listen to it run, because it had, if you didn't look at the Facebook shots, it had a lot of issues going on with it. As a matter of fact, we can probably pull those up at some point near the end of this premiere. But I'm going to go ahead and give Paula a call right now. See if I can do this right. Hello? 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 Paula, can you hear me? Oh, good.
Hello?
Yes, I am here. I am here.
Okay, and you can hear me now?
I can hear you now. It's like a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now?
Now that we've established we can hear each other, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, I was just reminding our friends before we jumped into this, I said, if you somehow missed it, because folks are going to watch this premiere live most likely on Sunday or Monday, and I said, if you somehow missed it on Saturday, it is like a national holiday right next to, say, like the 4th of July or, you know, something along those lines. It's National Oreo Day on Saturday.
Well, you're all set because you have them all lined up on a Viking, don't you? Or at
Well,
least in the workshop.
Well, those are all gone. Those are history. I ate all those. But no, I've got a... We're doing an audio chat for all of you folks that are watching this live premiere. And so Paula can't see that poised in front, almost like the Mona Lisa, in front of Pete and Amy's 1948 201-2, I've got a full package of party-sized, double-stuffed Oreos that, after I get done with chatting with Paula today about her looking at assuming the role of moderator, I'm going to hack into these puppies and then do some sew-offs on Pete and Amy's machine. But, oh, they just look, even just looking at them, they look glorious. And then when you eat them, it's, you know, it's just like, wow, how did they come up with these? Oh my gosh. Well,
They're a lifelong favorite.
yeah, they are. Let me ring the bell and kind of start us out officially and all that good stuff. And I'll change the camera shot. So any of you that don't somehow, maybe you've been on the planet Mars with the new rover or something like that, and you don't know who Paula Noel is, you can have a chance to see her beautiful smile in this shot. I'm assuming she's probably standing in her living room and contemplating her next creative project, because that's really how we got to know each other a little bit. Is all of you, again, if you've been on the planet Mars and you somehow missed the fact that we did a big fundraiser for the History Museum that ended up with us raising for them through our Heroes for History $11,100, then you'll know that Paula stepped out of the shadows into the light and said, hey, you know what, I've been following this whole thing. I got involved with it twice through getting a machine and then also through making a donation, and I saw those really cool 160-year-old bricks, and I'd like to see if you'd be open to me adding something to that brick thing. And I said, okay, what do you got in mind? She sent me some pictures of these really cool tags. And again, if you follow this channel and you follow Facebook faithfully, you've already seen Paula's super cool tags. that she created with a combination of stitching. And well, I won't steal any of her thunder. She'll probably talk about that a little bit. But she also used a vintage typewriter to type out part of these tags as well. And we're going to be going through a process today, kind of getting to know Paula a little bit as she looks at stepping into that role of moderator. I'll be sharing with her some insights about the moderator role a little bit. And I know she's been talking to, you know, the various leaders already, to include Sunny. You know, hey, what does a moderator do? You know, what do you guys do? Do you move mountains? Well, sometimes. You know, do you answer lots of questions, you know, from all over the world? Yeah, that happens too. But beyond that, it really is, I would just describe it as someone that's kind of waiting in the wings and ready to try to help. I've never met anyone, including myself, that has all the answers. But together as a team, we're going to be stepping out there when questions come in. And we do get questions from all over the place. We get them from France, from Australia, from Germany, from, I'm trying to think, the Netherlands. I mean, we just get them from everywhere. And everyone has a question that in some way resonates as new or unique. And I don't know if, Paula, do you have something to write with during the premiere?
I do.
Okay, all right, let me broaden the shot a little bit. And again, Paula and I are doing an audio chat, so she can't see that our good friend Dr. Singer is standing near the computer where we can see that image of Paula on the screen. And he's come up with some questions for Paula that will kind of test her a little bit as far as potentially being equipped to take on this moderator role. And she doesn't, here's the unique thing about Dr. Singer's test is she doesn't have to have the answers now. In fact, we already have the answers. And really the point of this test is to show all of you and to give you an appreciation for the wide scope of questions that come in all the time behind the scenes. And people like Paula or Hans or Bill or Sunny and maybe someone else soon, I won't go into that right now, these folks will see those questions come in. We all have that visibility. And sometimes folks will just get really excited and they'll see a question, maybe it's from Egypt, we've had those as well. And they'll see a question pop in and they'll jump on it. And then all of a sudden the question starts getting deeper and deeper and deeper and more complex. And Sunny can attest to the fact that this happened to her. She jumped into it, it was pretty high level, and then all of a sudden the questions got deeper and more complex. And she literally sent me a note behind the scenes through Messenger, H-E-L-P, help. And Sunny can share that at some point, or maybe even we'll share it in this premiere. And that's not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of wisdom in my book. Because I'll get questions sometimes and I'll read them initially, and I got 22 years experience doing this stuff, and I'll go, help! And that's where each one of these leaders that you've come to know, and you'll get to know Paula better, they all have unique gifts and talents. Some gifts and talents that I don't have, some that Hans doesn't have, some that Bill doesn't have, some that Sunny doesn't have, and that's what makes this super strong. And so we all will be there standing in the wings ready to help that leader. If they step in initially and they encounter a question or the question deepens or becomes more complex, we're all there ready to help out, because ultimately we just want to be there as a resource to try to help out those folks that will reach out to us, and they'll be saying, help! And so we all jump in together. Let me give you an idea of some of the questions that have come in, and I'm going to ask all the questions, and then I'll kind of circle back to Paula and say, hey, any of those seem familiar? Because some of these things I've actually covered in premieres. But then I'll give all of you the answers. And again, it's not to put Paula on the spot. It's to show all of you, hey, these are the type of things that will be coming in behind the scenes, and all of us on this leadership team have to try to find the answers for. So hold on a second. Okay. So starting with some of the questions, and these are questions that have come in the past, and Dr. Singer, bless his heart, he reminded me about them leading up to this premiere today. So the first question that he reminded me of is, who invented the sewing machine? Was it Thomas Saint, Elias Howell, or Isaac Singer? So that's question number one. Okay, question number two. When was the golden age of sewing? And this is only a small sample. We've had bazillion more questions than this.
Okay.
Question three. What is the most common seam allowance on U.S. sewing patterns?
Okay.
Question four. What type of fabric is made from a bug?
Okay.
Question five. How do you pink a seam? P-I-N-K. How do you pink a seam? Question six. Husqvarna knowledge. What was the year the King of Sweden decreed a drilling and grinding plant that eventually grew into the sewing factory known around the world? And what was the king's name? Ha ha! I love these. Dr. Singer, you're so smart. And by the way, Paula's probably going to send you a nasty note, just so you know, buddy. Okay. Next one. What was the first sewing machine made at the factory? I'm sorry. When was the first sewing machine made at the factory? And this is talking still about Husqvarna. When did Husqvarna make their first free arm machine? This has come up as a question. We've gotten this before.
Okay.
Okay. Now some really, really tough questions and semi-trick questions. What size belt does the Singer 201-2 take? Is it the same size as the Singer 503A? Question 8. When did Kenmore first appear with a sewing machine? And when did they drop their name in making sewing machines? When did it reappear? When did they end their contract with White Sewing Machine Company? And where, in the end, did they move their production to in the 1950s? These are all questions we've gotten, folks. I'm just warming up. Hold on a second. Hold on. All right. So any of you that thought being a moderator or being an editor is easy, you're getting a taste of what this team, including myself, have been managing behind the scenes. Okay, another fun question. Sears and Roebuck was established in what year? And when did they start selling sewing machines? And what other items did they sell? Next question. Actually, there's another subpart of that. Who founded Sears and Roebuck? And what state did they come from? And was there a sewing machine name associated with that particular state? Question 10. What are the most common amperages of the Singer potted motor found on the Singer 1591 and 201-2, and what is the amperage tolerance on the foot controllers associated with these machines? Question 11. Who is credited with founding the Elna Sewing Machine Company? What was their field of study, and what year did this happen? Question 12. When were the following Singer models manufactured and where? Singer 301, the Singer 301A, the Singer 401A, the Singer 403A, the Singer 404, the Singer 500A, and the Singer 503A. And I've covered these in a bunch of premieres, but we still get questions either through Facebook Messenger, directly by email, or I will have people call me as well in the workshop with these questions. And these are things that I oftentimes will push back to our leadership team. So these are questions that they will either have to answer or have answered in the past. Okay, question 13. What are the harp measurements of the Singer 221 and 99K? Because you know, you've seen me in premieres, I'll draw correlations between the 221 and the 99K. So what are the comparative harp space size measurements? And again, harp space is that internal core of the machine that is so critical to managing projects and materials. So give me the length, the width, the needle to pillar, and the height measurements for those two models. And this has come up, folks. I'm not making it up. Question 14. What are the parts of the typical sewing machine motor? What are the parts of the typical sewing machine electric motor? We won't even go into what they do. That's for another chapter when I probably interview our next potential moderator, who Paula already knows who that possibly is, but the leaders are evaluating this individual right now, and then they'll get back to me, and if they give thumbs up, we move forward. If they give thumbs down, there we go. All right, so question 15. We're almost at the end. We're almost at the end.
How many are there?
What is considered to be the earlier version of the Rolls-Royce of Singers? How is set up for sewing differently than this 201-2? There's all kinds of answers to that question, folks. Last but not least, question 16. What are models within the class 201 and 101 for Singer? How are they different? Date of manufacturing window. And that's question 16. Yeah. Ha ha! So any of you that in the shadows or off the radar have been saying, gee whiz, Scott makes such a big deal about how fabulous his leadership team is, how smart they are, how interdependent they are, how hard can it really be? Well, if all of you watching right now are drooling or busting pencils trying to keep up with these questions and going, how in God's green earth? And these are only like the tip of the iceberg questions that this leadership team has answered either individually or collectively. It gives you an idea of how important these folks are and the fact that they're volunteering their time to be a resource to people around the world. So kudos to Paula. And I've got bubbles on the screen right now that Paula can't see. Hold on a second. There she is again. Y'all are looking at the bubbles and going, what happened to Paula? Where'd she go? Okay, so let's rattle through the answers to these questions now, okay? For any of you that were saying, okay, are there really answers to these questions? There might be. So the first question I asked was, who invented the sewing machine? Was it Thomas Saint, Elias Howell, or Isaac Singer?
So, do I get a lifeline?
Well, you can ask Dr. Singer if he'll tell you, because he's the only one in the shot right now.
Okay, well, I could give my SOPG, my state of the pants guess, and then if I don't get it right, I could defer to my team.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to go with, it's not Isaac Singer, because that's too obvious. He probably didn't make the first one, so it's probably a little bit more, maybe, what was the second name you said? Elias Howard?
Yeah, Elias Howell and Thomas Saint was the first one, so.
Okay, I'm going to guess for Elias Howell, only because whenever there's an A, B, or C question, they say go with Abadabba, and that's A-A-B-B-A-D. So I'm going to go with B, because I think Singer's too obvious.
Okay. So the correct answer is actually 3 parts, and it's a little bit complicated, and this is the way that we've answered it in the past. As a matter of fact, this question may have come up even before Bill was added as the very first moderator on this page, and I was having to manage all of this craziness on my own. So thank goodness for everybody helping me out. So Elias Howell was issued the very first patent in 1846 from designs that were actually created by Walter Hunt. The next part of the answer is that prior to that, I'm taking them out of order to make it even more confusing. Prior to that, history seems to indicate that Thomas Saint was actually issued the very first patent in 1790. So Thomas Saint got his first patent for a sewing machine in 1790. It was not a practical machine that could actually be used. It was only on paper. Then Elias Howell came into the picture, as I already said, in 1846. He was also issued a patent, but it was slightly different, and it was actually created by Walter Hunt. Last but certainly not least, and Paula's gut was spot on, because she's like, Isaac Singer is too obvious. Well, he didn't come up with these patents before these other two guys, but he did come up with the first practical functioning machine in 1850. And the primary difference between the designs that Thomas Saint had come up with in 1790, Elias Howell in 1846, is that Isaac Singer's machine, instead of sewing from side to side like these designs much earlier than his had shown, his was the first practical design that sewed up and down. So that's only question one, folks. And I think Paula did a spot-on job. She did very well.
Phew. Okay.
Question two. When was the golden age of sewing?
I'm thinking back to that video you had of a World's Fair. And was it in the 30s that was presented the first portable sewing machine or something to that effect?
Well, the video I showed of the Chicago World's Fair would have been right around 1934. That's when most people attribute that revealing of the Singer 2221, the featherweight at that Chicago World's Fair. But the golden age of sewing is actually, according to historians, is a little bit later than that. It took a little while after people started to get really excited about, the featherweight and other machines that were coming onto the scene. And so the golden age of sewing is supposed to have been right between the 1940s and 1960s, about a 20-year period where people really, really started to get immersed into everything sewing, and there were all kinds of things coming on the scene, all kinds of machines being introduced. So you were extremely close on that one as well. Extremely close.
Oh, you're kind. That was good. You made that easier for me.
Question 3. What is the most common seam allowance on U.S. sewing patterns?
Well, that's a piece of cake. That's 5/8 inch.
Yes! Ha ha! See, I told you, this is it's so easy. It's not easy, folks, at all. It's crazy hard. So,
question. It was child's play from the age of 12 or 13, so that's okay.
Cool. Question 4. What type of fabric is made from a bug?
Silk.
Silk is right. Gee, I wish I had like a little ding, 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 ding. Yes. Well done. Okay, question 5. How do you pink a seam?
With a specially designed scissor in a zigzag fashion that prevents raveling.
Well done. Well done. I'll read what actually Dr. Singer gave me. And I think it's pretty much what Paula just said. So you sew your seam, then next you take your pinking shears and you cut carefully down the sides of the seam, and then you'll create a zigzag down the edge that will prevent fraying of the fabric. That's, you know what? Dr. Singer makes everything so difficult. Paula said it a lot better. So sorry, Dr. Singer. Okay, how about the next one?
Okay.
Husqvarna Viking knowledge. What was the year the King of Sweden decreed a drilling and grinding plant that eventually grew into the sewing factory known around the world? And part 2 of that is, what was the king's name?
I would have to defer to my Viking owner friends.
Okay.
No, I'll get back to you on that because I don't know have the answer, but I can find it for you easily.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So wait. Somebody's calling in right now. Hold on a second. Let me. Paula, just hold on a second. Okay. It is one of your Viking Husqvarna friends that has these machines and has been immersed in these machines and loves these machines. And she said the answer to Scott's question is it was the year 1620, and it was Gustavus II Adolphus, the King of Sweden, that got everything rolling and rocking and heading that direction. So thank you, friend, for calling in to help out Paula with that question. Okay, the next part of also Husqvarna Viking knowledge is, what was the first sewing machine, when was the first sewing machine made at the factory? What year was that?
I'll have to look that one up.
Okay. Hold on a second. Dr. Singer, say it a little bit louder to me, would you? 1872. 1872 is the first year that they rolled sewing machines out of the factory after having done musket barrels and a variety of other things at the factory there in Sweden. Okay, the next question is, when did Husqvarna make their first free arm machine? What year was that?
Oh, gee, I'm not knowing that answer.
That's okay. A lot of people don't. And a lot of people contact us about that repeatedly, about the same thing. When did Husqvarna have their first free arm? The answer is 1947. 1947. Okay, so that's the end of question 6. We got a ways to go yet. This is quite an evaluation.
Yes, it is.
And more importantly, it's quite an opportunity to highlight how much work our incredible leadership team does behind the scenes to help all of you. Okay, question 7. What size belt does the Singer 201-2 take? Is it the same size as the Singer 503A?
Well, it's only the same size in that it doesn't require one.
Okay. Paula is really, really on her toes. If any of you behind the scenes during this premiere wrote down something, I don't know, like 12-inch, 13-inch, or whatever, that was one of our trick questions. The 201-2 is gear to gear, and also the 503A is gear to gear. You never have to put a belt on them. And guess what? Paula already knew that. So well done. Well done.
Oh.
Question 8. When did Kenmore first appear with a sewing machine? When did it drop its name in the lines of making sewing machines? When did it reappear again? And when did it end its contract with White? And last but not least, where did it ultimately move its production to?
I will have to consult with my comrades on that.
Okay, fair enough. Hold on a second. I'm getting a text from Bill. Hold on a second. Bill, okay, here's what Bill says. And again, we are an interdependent team. Not all of us is going to have the answers. So Bill is chiming in right now because Bill apparently has done some research on Kenmores. And what Bill said is they first came on the scene in 1913. They dropped their name of Kenmore in 1919. They reappeared again in 1934, and they ended their contract with White in 1958, and ultimately they moved their operation to the original home of origin where Umi comes from. Japan.
Japan, okay.
Okay. So let's go on to question 8. Oh, that was question 8. I apologize. Question 9. Let's go to question 9 now. Question 9. And these are all questions we've actually gotten, folks, honestly. So question 9. Sears and Roebuck was established in 1893. When did they start selling sewing machines? And what other items did they sell?
I'm going to have to consult Google on that, or you as well could maybe look it up. This is how I'd answer it. Or if you would like to look it up yourself. And they also sold clothing by catalog and shoes.
Spot on, spot on. So again, folks, Sears and Roebuck was established in 1893. They started selling sewing machines just a year later in 1894. And as Paula already said, they were also selling clothing, they were selling firearms, carriages, musical instruments, clocks, and this was all being done by mail order. They didn't have any brick and mortar back then. They were all doing it through those wonderful catalogs. If any of you are about my age or older, you remember those awesome Sears and Roebuck type catalogs. JCPenney had them as well. And as a kid, you would thumb through them and you were in wonderland because of all the things that you could see on those pages, eventually in full color, and just, it was a blast. It was a blast. You remember that, Paula? Or are you too young?
Oh, I remember it. Yes, clearly.
Okay, next question. It's actually part of that same question 9. Who founded Sears and Roebuck? What state did they come from? And was there a sewing machine named after that particular state where this company kind of came out of it? What do you think, Paula?
Oh, I don't have that answer.
That's okay. Wait a second. Wait. Hold on. I'm getting a instant message from Sonny out in Pennsylvania. Hold on. Let me see if I can read this. Okay, what Sonny has written is, why in the heck are you giving Paula such a hard time? Oh, I love it. No, she didn't write that. She wrote the answer because she is also part of our leadership team, and she is jumping into this and saying, hey, we all do this together. None of us can do it on our own. So the answers are, the founder of Sears and Roebuck was none other than Richard Sears, who came from Minnesota. And they ultimately, because of his roots of Minnesota, they came out with great models like the Minnesota model line, which had models A, B, C, D, and K. And the Model A of the Minnesota series came out right around 1911. So great job, Sonny. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. Okay, question 10. What are the most common amperages of the Singer potted motor found on the Singer 1591 and Singer 201-2, which Paula already pointed out? They don't need belts. So what is the common amperages for those motors? And what is the amperage tolerance on the foot controllers associated with those machines? What do you think, Paula?
The amperage would be 0.6 amps on that. The foot control, I don't recall.
Okay, hold on a second. Wait. Okay, I just got an email from Hans. Hans wrote, he said, Scott, even though I'm near Sweden, I've been collecting Singers now, as you know, featherweights included, and the average amperages that are most common for the potted motors are, as Paula said, 0.6 amps, but also they made a number of them with 0.5 amps also, and the foot controller is 0.7 amps because, like you said, Scott, the foot controller has to have a higher amperage tolerance than the motors themselves. Well done, Hans. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okay, question 11. Who is credited with founding the Elna Sewing Machine Company? What was their field of study, and what year did this occur? What do you think, Paula?
Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. I don't have that answer for you.
That's okay. That's okay. Let's see here. Let me check my notes. Dr. Singer, help me out on this one because I'm not hearing anything from Hans or Sonny or Bill. They're being silent on this one. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. So,
but I do think the field of study was totally unrelated to sewing machines.
Okay, cool. So here's what Dr. Singer just told me, because Dr. Singer again came up with these questions. He said Dr. Ramon Robert, who was actually a Spanish engineer, is the one that is attributed with the roots and founding of the Elna Sewing Machine Company, which eventually developed in Switzerland, where we just sent that machine to Heidi. And his first prototype came out in 1934. And the first model that Elna came out with was called nothing other than Elna 1. A real creative name, right? and it was produced from 1940 to 1952. So, yeah, we're learning all kinds of things, and that's what we do in the classroom, both in front of the scenes and also behind the scenes. Again, none of us have all the answers. We learn together. We learn through persistence and tenacity and through digging to get a lot of these answers for folks when they sent these questions in. So the next question I threw out to Paula was when were the following Singer models manufactured and where? And the first one I threw out there was the Singer 301. What do you think, Paula?
How about 1956?
Pretty doggone close, actually. The correct answer is 1952. And it was the only year that Singer made the Singer 301. And it was in Elizabethport, New Jersey. So the next one was the Singer 301A. The Singer 301A. What do you think on that one, Paula?
Where it was produced?
Yeah, the year bracket it was made and where it was made.
Oh, the bracket. Okay, it started at 52. Let's say it was made for 6 years. Trying to think how many years this was made. Probably 6 years or less, because they had so many coming up. And I believe it was made in Anderson, North Carolina.
Okay, you're close on both accounts. And again, don't be afraid to use one of your lifelines. Reach out to Bill, reach out to Hans, reach out to Sonny, or you can reach out to me. But the correct answer on Singer 301A is the manufacturing bracket was from 1953 to 1957. And you were right about Anderson, but it's actually South Carolina, not North Carolina.
Okay.
So very well done. Very, very good. Okay, Singer 401A. Singer 401A, which is actually a model that Paula bought, or I shouldn't say bought, made a donation on when I set all those Slantomatics out to help out our fundraiser for the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana. And she scooped up that 401A. So the 401A, what do you think, Paula? When was it made?
Well, I think it was made in 56. I'm going to stick with that year because that's the year of my birth, so I'm going to go with the lucky number. But I'd have to refer to Google or to you or one of the other mods. Okay,
all right. If you're putting a lifeline out to me, I will tell you that you are absolutely correct. It came on the scene in 1956, and they made it until 1961. And it was made at Anderson Plant in what state?
South Carolina.
Spot on. Spot on. Well done. Okay, so we're on to the Singer 403A. The Singer 403A, what do you think about the manufacturing bracket on that, and where do you think that one was made?
Well, I would assume it would be made in the same place because they were already making the 401, and they were making a less expensive model, so they probably made it about the same year to make it available to more customers.
Okay. Hold on a second. Wait. I'm getting a quick instant message from Sunny out of Pennsylvania, and she says for the 403A, since again none of us need to know all these answers, but we can figure them out together. The 403A was made from 1958 to 1960, and as Paula already said, it was made in Anderson, South Carolina. So moving on to the 404 now, which is the straight stitch only machine, and it is the machine that Craig got during the fundraiser to give to Sonny as a gift. And again, it's only a straight stitch machine. What do you think on the 404, Paula?
Well, again, I'm going to guess the same year to try to make it more available to customers, but I would probably refer to Sonny since she's an expert in that area.
Okay. Not hearing anything from Sonny. Hold on a second. Okay, I just got an email from Craig. And Craig said, Sonny wasn't sure, but I just Googled it. And the 404 was made from 1958 to 1963. and it was made at Elizabethport, New Jersey Singer production plant. So thank you, Craig. Thank you. Well done, my friend. Not only did you give a great gift, but you also just helped us out with that answer as well. Perfect. So the Singer 500A, which we don't hear a lot about that model. What do you think on the Singer 500A, Paula?
Again, it's out of my knowledge base, so I would have to look into that from my co-moderators or to Scott the King here and see who has that answer for you.
Cool enough. Okay. So I'm going to tell you that the 500A, which if you remember me interviewing a gentleman out on the East Coast, and wonderful man to talk to, worked for Singer, all that, that was his go-to model. That was the model that he loved the most. His first name, I believe, was Frank Wilson. And he just sent me a quick text and said, the Singer 500A was made from 1961 to 1963, and with having that A at the end, it also was made in Anderson, South Carolina. So we're down to our last Singer model in this question 12, the Singer 503A, the one that that Emma described as her unicorn machine. What do you think on that one, Paula?
I would make it 60. How about 1963? Have it made there, and of course, again in Anderson. I would say it was made in.
Nope. Go with your first thought. Okay.
Well, the A is for Anderson. Of course, the A is always for Anderson.
Yep.
That's the only letter where they're produced when it has an A after it. Yes, Anderson. Okay, and I would make it a couple years after, since it's a number after where they added more features, probably.
And the easy way to remember the 500 series for all of you watching right now, and these are really, by the way, these are incredibly tough questions. And I did.
The Rocketeer?
What's that?
The Rocketeer?
Yeah. So, but what I was leading up to saying is that I didn't proctor Paula on these at all. I didn't tell her what questions I was going to be asking because I didn't have them yet. Dr. Singer handed them to me just moments before we came live with this premiere. So, thanks, Dr. Singer.
That was abundantly clear that I wasn't from.
So the answer again, going back to Singer 500A, I already gave you the answer to that, was 1961 to 63, Anderson, South Carolina. The identical date brackets of manufacturing and the place of manufacturing applies also to the 503A. So if we ever get that question coming in for any of us, we can tell that person right away, oh, you're asking about the 500A? Yep, 1961 to 63, Anderson, South Carolina. The same is true of the Rocketeer, the 503A, also made from 61 to 63 in Anderson, South Carolina. So we made it through question 12. We're getting really, really close. Now we're up to what are the Harp measurements, and I actually showed this on one of the premieres. What are the Harp measurements of the Singer 221, the featherweight, and the 99K? And again, we're looking for approximate length, width, needle to pillar, and the height from the bed to the bottom of the arm for these two models. And again, the reason that I compare these two all the time is because the Singer 99 and 99K, and the same is true of the Spartan, these are technically 3/4 size machines, while the featherweight is a half size machine. But when you look at their overall size, they're really as compact as the featherweight, and even more so when you don't take into account that featherweight bed being folded down to make the machine overall even bulkier. So any thoughts on any of those measurements? And I don't expect you to know this off the cuff, but I'm just going to ask you anyway.
Well, I'm thinking that the width from pillar to the needle arm is going to be about 8 inches, and the depth about 4 3/4, and the height from needle arm to the throat plate about 3/4 of an inch.
Okay. So here's the measurements that Dr. Singer wrote down, and I did just double check them, and he's correct. And I had shown this during a couple of the premieres, because again, the featherweight have a very strong following. And the 99, the 99K, and the Spartan sometimes really kind of fall into the shadows and are not given the recognition that they deserve. So the answers to this one is, for the Harp measurements of the featherweight, the 221, overall bed length, 15 inches. And again, that's from the very end of the bed when it's folded down, all the way to the other end of the bed on the far right side. So 15 inches. The overall width is 6.75 inches. That's from the front of the bed to the very rear of the bed. Needle to pillar is 5 inches.
Oh, you know what? I had the wrong thought in mind. I know, now I get you. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
I was thinking the 4 3/4 to the top of the harp to the base to fit your fabric through.
Yeah, that's cool. That's totally cool. And the height, again, we're measuring the height in the harp area. And if some of you are brand new to this, the harp space is so essential because it's that inner core of the machine that will allow you to turn bulkier materials, whether it's the height clearance, the needle to pillar clearance, the width clearance, whatever it is. So that's where the harp really plays into being very, very important when it comes to, picking the right machine so that you're able to manage the projects that you're planning on doing. So let's see, needle pillar again on the featherweight is 5 inches. The height, again, from the bed to the bottom of the arm is 4.25 inches. And now on the 99, 99K, and the Spartan, they're all going to be pretty much the identical model. Overall bed length is 12 inches. So it's actually shorter in overall bed length when that bed is folded down on the featherweight. The 99, 99K, and the 192K, which is the Spartan, are actually shorter in overall bed length. And I've said that during premieres. It's actually a more compact machine in overall bed length. The width on the 99K is 6.5 inches. So it's going to be a little bit more narrow than the featherweight. Needle to pillar with the 99K series machines is going to be 6.25. So needle to pillar, again, if you're looking at turning fabric when that needle is down in the material, you're actually going to be able to turn it more easily with the 99K series machines than you are with the featherweight. It's going to have 1.25 inches more clearance between needle and pillar. And last but not least, the height with the 99K series machines is going to be 5 inches. So it's going to be about 0.75 inches taller in clearance than the featherweight. So any of you that love your featherweights, I do too, but if you've never considered looking at a 99 and 99K or a 192K, which is the Spartan, after I've given you these measurements of the harp space, you can see where it's worth considering. It really is. So great job on that as well, Paula. Really, I mean, these are not easy questions to know off the cuff. They simply aren't. So the next one, question 14. What are the parts of the typical sewing machine electric motor?
You really got me on that one. I never open up motors, but I'm just going to say there's got to be some bushings in there and perhaps a worm gear to go from the motor to the... that's like stab in the dark.
Okay, no worries. Hold on a second. I am actually getting a text from one of our non-leaders, from Tom Olsen. And if you remember Tom Olsen, maybe you do, maybe you don't, and he was also one of our heroes for history. But Tom Olsen is the gentleman that brought a bunch of Husqvarna Vikings to the workshop, and 2 of them were for his beautiful daughters. And we had talked about that a little bit. This has been some time ago. But Tom Olsen, along with now being an attorney in Wisconsin, prior to that, because of being inspired by his dad, being an electrician, Tom was also a licensed electrician before he went to law school and became an attorney. So Tom just sent me a note. And he said, okay, the basic components, and there may be some differing views on this because some electric motors are going to be slightly different in their setup. But the basic components are the commutator, the rotor coils, the armature, the windings, the stacked metal lamentations, And if you remember a while back, we had a featherweight in the workshop, and the lady had brought it in. She's from the Wisconsin area, and she had gotten it, and I showed you in the Facebook shots how the stacked metal lamentations on her featherweight motor had separation and damage to them. So all of those components working together give you a strong motor. Anything that can be compromised in that electric motor, any of those areas that we just mentioned, can cause you to have problems with power delivery, with punch, and all the other things that we depend on as far as our electric motors. Okay, question 15. What is considered to be the earlier version of the Rolls-Royce of Singers? How is set up for sewing differently than the 201-2? Any thoughts on that? And I did do a premiere on this of one of these machines that came in from New York, and I did a pretty detailed premiere talking about the different attributes of the machine, and also compared and contrasted that machine from the 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singers. Any thought on that, Paula?
I think I need to go watch that premiere because I didn't see it, but the 1591, I believe.
Well, again, we're talking about the 201-2 and this other model. So do you think the other model is the 1591?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had talked about 1590. Repeat the question, please.
Sure, absolutely. What is considered to be the earlier version of the Rolls-Royce of Singers? And this is going to be a little bit tricky because Paula was going along the right thought process in thinking about the 1591, because I've talked about the 1591 coming on the scene before the 201-2, but this is a little bit of a tricky one. So let me read it again. What is considered to be the earlier version of the Rolls-Royce of Singers? How is the setup for sewing different from the 201-2?
Okay, well, there's 4 different versions of the 201, and I'm going to say that the first one is belt-driven, I'm guessing. The second one is gear-driven. The third one is treadle. And the fourth one is a hand crank. I'm not sure.
That's okay. That's okay. Hold on one second. Hold on a second. I just got an instant message from Bill O'Rourke from Florida. And Bill said, this is a tricky question, but Dr. Singer sent me a text and kind of gave me some insights into what you're looking for, Scott. So the model that I was looking for, and again, this is tricky, but the line of thought that Paula was going on is spot on for as we move to question 16 after we get through this one. Because again, question 15, I'm looking for that, that earlier version of what would have been kind of almost a near carbon copy of the 201-2. And again, the 1591 is going to be smaller in scale than the 201-2. So the model I was looking for, and again, my friend from New York sent me one of these. It's the Singer 101. The Singer 101.
Oh,
and
that's new for me.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's actually a premiere on his machine. If you type in Singer 101, you'll see it on the channel. And the difference between these two machines, and I kind of joked about it during that particular premiere, because with the Singer 101 coming on the scene much earlier than the Singer 201-2 that you've seen so much on this channel, and again, the 201-2 is the one that the Olivers had in the mansion down there in South Bend, Indiana. But well before the 201-2 ever came on the scene, Singer came out with a 101. And the 101 is set up totally the opposite from the 201-2. So when you set up the 201-2, you're going to have the flat side of the needle to the left. On the Singer 101, you have to have the flat side of the needle to the right. When you're threading the 101, you're going to thread it from left to right through the needle. When you're threading the 201-2, again, they're almost identical in many respects. When you're threading the needle on the 201-2, you're going to be threading it from right to left.
Well, does that mean that in order for it to be going a different direction, that the bobbin case would be from the other direction as well? So when the needle comes down, it'll catch the threads in the bobbin in the correct position?
The rotation of the hook is going to be 180 degrees opposite. Exactly right. Exactly right. So the 101 is going to be one of those machines as the balance wheel is turning, instead of turning to the front like we're accustomed to seeing it, it's going to be turning to the rear.
Okay.
So that's a totally different aspect, and it's kind of interesting that as they went through the evolution of the 101 to eventually doing the 201-2, they didn't leave things pretty much the same. Plus, the other unique thing about the 101, and this is not part of our questions, it's just part of that premiere, is I talk about the fact that the 101, which again came out much, much earlier than the Rolls-Royce Singers, was designed as a self-oiling machine, and it had a sump type system where you could take off the entire bed of the machine and then you would add oil to this central sump area, and then it would wick out like a spider's. Remember, some of you that did see that premiere, I had a surprise when I took off the cover of that 101 that belonged to my friend from New York, because one of the guys in the workshop, I still don't know who it is, had snuck one of the fake spiders underneath the bed of that machine. So when I took the bed of the machine off, there's this huge brown ugly spider looking thing getting ready to jump out at me.
Oh, too funny.
Yeah, it's funny afterwards. It was, wow, what? So, but yeah, the 101 has a really cool sump system on it. And if any of you, like Paula, for whatever reason, didn't have a chance to catch that premiere, check it out. It's kind of cool. It's a totally different concept for Singer, where they were trying to make it, pretty much, low maintenance, no maintenance, by telling people, you add oil to this one central sump area, it's going to wick out like spider legs to all the key lubrication points on the machine, and that's all you got to do.
I did see that creature on Facebook somewhere, where someone was asking, what in the world is this ugly spider-looking thing?
Yeah. So that was probably a Singer 101 with that auto-oiling Singer sump system that they came up with way back in the day, well before the 201-2 ever came on the scene. So, and the other thing to highlight between those two models, again, they were really brothers in many respects as far as the body design and everything, with some unique nuances like the way the hook turns and everything else. But also when you're setting up these machines to sew, you got to make sure that with the bobbin thread orientation, again, that's when you're putting the bobbin into the raceway area, that for, excuse me, for the 101, when that bobbin is turning, it's going to be turning counterclockwise. And for the 201-2, it's going to be turning clockwise. So that's really critical when you're putting that bobbin in. Basically, you're going to be, for the counterclockwise, for the 101, you're going to be putting that thread in with the thread coming over the top. With the 201-2, you're going to be putting that bobbin in with the thread coming underneath the bottom of the bobbin as you're dropping it in, so that bobbin's going to be turning the opposite direction. Okay.
And who was the man that invented the 101? Was it someone different than the 201?
Well, all of these were they all had their wellspring of development from the Singer sewing machine company. So I don't know that they're ever going to really point to a specific, engineer, developer that came up with a concept. But again, the 101 came on the scene decades before the 201-2. So it was probably a different engineering team that would have developed this 101. And there were different types of 101s as well, but we're not going to get into that right now. I think I mentioned that in the premiere, that they developed well before the Rolls-Royce ever came on the scenes, about 20 some years later.
Well, I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory that the creator of the 101 was left-handed, because it's difficult for a right-handed person to thread a needle left to right.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy that. And if any of you want to research to help us out, because it goes both ways, it's kind of like when I was talking recently with this other individual, which will go unnamed at this point, that also might be joining pretty close in succession with Paula in stepping into a moderator role. I was explaining to this individual when I was chatting with that person that we have an interplay behind the scenes with people that reach out to us with questions like these that we presented in this premiere today, that Paula was so courageous to kind of take a stab at some of these. Again, none of us are going to know these off the cuff. A lot of these have to be researched. A lot of these, you got to do a lot of digging to find the answer for these folks asking us these questions. But what I said to this individual that's also being considered for a moderator role, I said, we'll have some people that will come to us and they just keep, they aren't willing to do any of the work themselves. They're just, they'll circle back and circle back and circle back and circle back. And a lot of these things could be found on Google, as Paula already alluded to, and can be found through other resource banks of information. So what I said to this individual is sometimes we have to turn them back with their same question and say, why don't you research that and let me know what you find out? And it's that interplay of helping someone to fish, but ultimately our job as leaders on this channel, on this Facebook page, is to help people also learn how to fish themselves. So I remember one instance where Bill was doing his very best to help this individual from Egypt, and Bill could chime in if he's in this premiere about that interaction with that individual. But this was one of those individuals that they were wanting to treat Bill like a concierge and wanting him to do all the work and not willing to help at all themselves. And so Bill finally had to turn the faucet off a little bit and say, with my encouragement, push him back the same question, have them find the answer, and then tell them to get back to you, Bill, on what they found out. And Bill eventually kind of did that, kind of pushed it back, and that person, they came back with a little bit of a partial answer, and then they just disappeared. So, but if you decide in watching this premiere that you've got some questions that you want to pitch to us, just realize that at some point we're going to be pitching them back to you, because part of the classroom experience is for the teacher to teach, but also for the students to step in as well and to participate. So just know that that's the case. If you reach out with questions like these to us, we're very likely at some point to give you a little bit of pushback and to try to involve you in the learning process as well. So, all right. So we're finally on to the last question, question 16. And question 16 was, what are the models? And Paula already started to jump on this one a little bit, which I thought was really cool. The question is, what are the models within the class 201 and 101 for Singer? How are they different? And what is the date of manufacturing window? Any ideas on that one, Paula?
Well, I'm going to have to get only partial credit on this one from my some knowledge of the 201s when I was doing my exploration on what is the best sewing machine that I could find when I found your video of the Rolls Royce. But I don't have the dates for those, but I will start with 1936 for the 201, and I'm guessing, and the 101 I don't know, and I will consult with Scott Geller and give him and have him help me out on that. You've been very kind on giving me partial credit for a lot of these questions. You've been made it easier than it might have been.
Okay, cool. All right. So the way that, and again, these particular questions are something that Dr. Singer came up with. So, and I was wrong. I actually have a page after this. I thought 16 was our last question, but we actually have more than that. So the different 201s, and Paula hit on a lot of these. The first 201-1 that came on the scene was a treadle version of the 201. The one that came after that is the one that you've heard about so much on this channel, the 201-2, with that potted motor on the rear, which again either comes with a 0.5 amp motor or a 0.6 amp motor. Then came the 201-3, which was a belt version, almost identical to the 201-2. And then the 201-4 came on the scene as a hand crank right around early to mid 1920s is when that came on the scene.
Wow.
So now we've got the 101 that we talked about a little bit. And I don't know if I went into all the breakdowns of the 101 because there were several different 101s that came on the scene. But the basic window of the 101 was from around 1920 until 1932. So much later than that, again, the 101 that we talked about, the sump system, as Paula suggested, maybe it was designed by a left-hander because of its setup. That came on the scene in 1920 and was made until 1932. The 201 came on the scene almost 15 years later in 1935, but was manufactured until 1964. And there was, if that's not complex enough, and these are all things that either before I was blessed with all of these wonderful leaders that collaborate on questions like this with me and do the research and do the due diligence, even to make it more complicated on the 201 side, we also had the Britons getting involved as well, coming out with a 201K that came on the scene in 1934 and was manufactured, believe it or not, all the way into the 1980s. So a lot of information. Again, it just gives you an appreciation where when someone like Bill, who was my first moderator, then Hans, and now Paula, I'm sorry, Sonny, and then Paula, these folks have a lot of courage in stepping, even though it's behind the scenes, stepping into that space because there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of difficult questions that will come across, but thank goodness we don't have to do it alone. We can all collaborate on some of these things and find answers like these. Okay, so let me turn to the next page, which is hopefully the final page of what Dr. Singer gave me here. Let's see here. Okay, I think I got it here. Oh, I did. Okay. Well done, Dr. Singer. I didn't know that you'd given all these particular breakouts. Okay, fantastic. So the breakouts on the 101, again, the one that preceded the 201-2 by about 15 years, there was a 101-1 model that was built between 1920 and 1925, and they even associate specific cabinets to it that Singer would have built. Cabinets number 17, 18, and 19. And then they had the 101-2 that was built from 1922 to 1926, and it was controlled by a knee control, and the appropriate cabinet that goes with that one, if you ever got, say, a 101-2, you would need to pick cabinet number 20 is the one that fits that machine. Then you had the 101-3 that was built from 1925 to 1930, and that also is knee control, but with that one you need to use cabinet number 40. Then there's the 101-4 that was built from 1929 to 1937. It was chrome plated, or as they said back then, chromium plated. Then the 101-10 that was built from 1922 to 1926. And that one was really a unique development because they made it all aluminum. And then finally the 101-11 built from 1925 to 1929. That was also aluminum, but that was no longer in a table. People were getting tired of the tables and they wanted portability. So by the time the 101-11 came on the scene in 1925 to 1929, and they made it out of aluminum, they also put it in a case instead of in a table. And if you ever get one of those 101-11s, you're going to need case number 204. And I'm thinking that when I initially went through some of these questions with Paula, I missed this last page, didn't I, Paula?
Well, I'm real glad you missed it because there's not a prayer.
Well, I did. I thought Dr. Singer told me 2 pages, but he actually wrote up 3 pages for this premiere. And that's what I'm going into right now. So wow, rewind and crazy.
You know, when you go to college, there's a hazing. Is it kind of the same thing when you become a mod?
Well, I hope not, because there's no cruelty intended, I think, in going through this. It's really quite actually the opposite. It's to help everyone that is watching this to realize that the job of being a moderator or an editor is, because an editor will do a lot of this same research and due diligence to help out folks that reach out to us from all around the globe. It's really to highlight that role deserves a lot of respect, and it deserves a lot of appreciation. And I've said that before in premieres. I've said that before, where folks reach out to one of the leadership team and they get a little bit nasty, or they get impatient, or they get whatever. That's not going to receive a lot of grace from me, because these folks have a very difficult job. Even though it's on their own time, they do it when they have time. They do it at their liking. They pick the questions that they want. Very seldom will I assign questions, but sometimes I do, because I know that person has strengths or knowledge in that area. But the bottom line is, it's not a job to say, oh, that's easy peasy. It's not. It takes sometimes a lot of work, and Sonny could attest to that. Bill could attest to that, and Hans could attest to that as well, because all of these folks have handled some pretty tough questions, and some of those questions have required, like I said, collaboration, where I've had to jump in and help out a little bit, or maybe that moderator reached out to Bill or Hans for help, or Hans has reached out to me for questions. Believe it or not, stop the presses. Hans has gotten questions sometimes that he's jumped in on that are Husqvarna related, and he'll get stumped sometimes too, because again, Hans is real new to vintage sewing machines. Only has been doing it for about 2 years. So it's again, not all of us are going to have the answers. Not all of us are going to be able to handle a question independently. We sometimes have to reach out to other folks on the team and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think they're asking for? What do you think they want? And between all of us, we're able to figure things out. So again, not to haze, but to point towards appreciation for the fact that the role can be challenging.
Yes, I definitely got that impression, and I look forward to the experience and the challenge of being able to help in that role, and I'm looking forward to working with a great team.
And she means that, folks, but at the same time, she's probably grinding her teeth a little bit, saying, oh my goodness gravy, what am I being put through right now? So
well, you did throw me a few bones, or Dr. Singer threw me a few bones with some of the ones that are like, maybe to some people you're unfamiliar, but it's what I grew up with. So it took some of my knowledge base and some SOPGs, which is seat of the pants guessing, but I won't guess for answers. This was just I will actually look things up before I won't give an incorrect answer. I'll say, I'm not sure, let me look that up.
Well, and you echo exactly what Bill said when he came on as the very first moderator. He said, I might not know the answer, but I'm going to do my darndest to find it. And I'll let them know I don't know the answer off the cuff, but I'll have to do some research on that. So again, these are questions that I would not expect anyone to have off the cuff. This is to highlight for all of you the scope of questions that we get, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. But it gives you an appreciation for what these great folks are doing, including myself, behind the scenes to try to be a resource to all of you around the world. So we're on the final page now that I didn't even realize Dr. Singer had given me. So we got through the 101 stuff, the cabinet stuff, all those other particulars about that 101 model that came on the scene in 1920, 15 years before the 201-2. Now some other questions that I never even asked Paula before because I didn't realize they were here is, what is the history of, and some people will argue, kind of like they'll argue about, how do you say Necki? Do you say Necki? Do you say Nietzsche? Do you say Foff? Do you say Faff? Do you say, whatever? Some people will say that this brand is pronounced record. I always say Recar because that's kind of the way it looks. But what is the history of the Recar or the Recar sewing machine company? And I highlighted this machine on a couple of premieres because these machines were used a lot in the U.S. In classrooms. And I had presented a couple of these on this channel. If you've never seen those premieres, you'll want to check them out. Google Recar, which is R-I-C-C-A-R, R-I-C-C-A-R on the channel, and you'll see those premieres where I go into depth about these machines, and they're really a cool machine. As a matter of fact, I sent one out to my friend Irene out in California, prepared it for her, sent it out to her after I got done with that machine. But here's the question, okay? What is the history of the Recar sewing machine company, or Recar sewing machine company, as some people will say it? When was it founded? Under what name was it founded originally? What country was it founded in? And what year did it change from that original company name to the name of Recar or Record? R-I-C-C-A-R. What do you think, Paula, on this one? This is a tough one.
Not even a seat of the pants guess on this one.
Okay, that's cool. All right. Well, I actually did the research on this one because I presented a premiere on it. So I'm gonna be your lifeline on this one, and also be your teammate. Again, the one thing I want to emphasize is if a question like this comes in, I might not even know an answer when it first comes on the scene, and between collaboration with all the other leaders, we're going to do our best to find the answer to it. So on this one, that company was originally founded in 1939, and it was under the original name, and I'm gonna, if Umi is listening right now, she's gonna be cringing her teeth because I'm probably gonna totally mutilate it, because it was founded as a Japanese company under the name of Nippon Shakusan Kogyo is the best I can do. And I know enough Japanese to get myself in trouble. You know, konnichiwa, o genki desu ka, genki desu. That's about it. But that's the original name that it was founded on. And then it was changed to Recar or Recar in 1949. So those were the answers that Dr. Singer was looking for that question number 17. Question.
Wow, well, the only Japanese I know is Arigato Sensei and how to count to 10 from my karate days. But
well, how do you count to 10 in Japanese, since sometimes the teacher, always a student?
Oh gosh, now I have to dig it out. Ichi, sanshi, go, ro, and I think I just fell off the map.
The last one after that is hachi.
Okay, we did sparring, and we had to in our practice drills do the, and we had to count as we did our. Yes, it's been a while. I was 18.
we learned it as I studied martial arts that was Korean based, so I learned the Korean side of things. You were on the Japanese side, which is totally awesome and cool. And by the way, folks, I did not know that about Paula either. So if we end up at some point, all of us coming together and doing this mega road trip to go to the very dangerous city of South Bend, Indiana, to visit that history museum, Paula and I got your back, because she's like the Japanese martial arts side. I got the Korean side. Then we got Emma
you got the
from
Taekwondo. What level belt do you have there, Scott?
I made it to second Dan.
I don't know what Dan 9 is called, but I trained in Shotokan from Okinawa, and I had a brown belt.
Second Dan is second degree black belt.
Oh, well, then you're way ahead of me. I didn't make it to black belt. Wow.
Yeah, I studied it. Yeah, a lot of kids in high school, and I know folks were getting off topic, and Dr. Singer is looking at me like, "Hey, stay on track, Scott." But it's part of.
This is fascinating.
And it's part of the big part, Dr. Singer. The big part of this is not these questions that you came up with, my friend. It's getting to know Paula and appreciating her for her unique gifts and talents, which includes she could rock and roll and protect herself and protect others if we ever got down that road. So, but yeah, I studied, a lot of people were doing sports in high school. I never did the sports thing. Right around when I was 15, I started studying Taekwondo with Sabom Nim Che. He was a grandmaster. He wore a black belt, and a lot of people have never heard of this if you never studied martial arts, but he wore a black belt that when I first met him, I was just a curious 15-year-old, and I showed him respect, but I said, Sabonim Che, why do you have a red line running down the middle of your belt all the way around your belt, instead of having like little hash marks on the end of the tails of the belt or something like that, like I did. I had 2 little hash marks which said I was a 2nd degree black belt eventually. And he had a red line that bisected all the way around the belt that he wore around his waist. He said, Scott, that means in Korea that I have the touch of death. I said, yes, sir. Total respect. Total respect.
Wow.
So yeah, and he like almost like a lot of you have seen the movie Karate Kid, and maybe some of you have seen the latest Karate Kid version. You know, Daniel-san has grown up and all that kind of stuff, Kopakai or whatever it was called. I haven't seen that movie, and I know it's on Netflix or Rogu or whatever, Raggedy Ann or whatever that other channel is. I don't know much about those things. And that again points out, you know, my knowledge is limited. And between Paula's knowledge, my knowledge, Han's knowledge, Bill's knowledge, Sonny's knowledge, and maybe potentially this other person's knowledge, all of us together, we can figure a lot of things out. But alone, that's what we got. So, but at any rate, where was I going with that? I guess I was
just varied knowledge. We have our own little niche. Like, you know, if you need a craniotomy with laser micromanipulator, I'm your girl. Okay.
Oh, I know where I was going to go with that, I think. So I was talking about Master Che, the one that I studied under. And his belt had that red line running through it, the touch of death. And I asked him about learning Taekwondo in Korea. And he said a lot of the learning that we got was practical learning as well, because we sometimes had to fight to protect ourselves. We had to fight from getting robbed. We had to fight to save our lives in some extreme circumstances. And you remember in that original movie, when Daniel-san is first meeting Mr. Miyagi, blah, 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 and Mr. Miyagi talks about learning the art that he was teaching Daniel-san because it meant survival. It meant protecting his own life back in his home country. So that's where I was going with that, for whatever that's worth. But I'm sure that Paula could share stories about her experience in studying a Japanese version of martial arts as well, about her teacher and lessons learned and all that kind of stuff. But I did not know that about Paula. So that's the cool part about premieres like this as well, as you learn things you didn't know about that individual. What's the next question?
There's more?
Oh yeah, we're not done yet, dear. Okay, question 18. And again, these are, don't be mad at me, Dr. Singer came up with these. Question 18. When were these FOF, or for those of you that are clueless that say FAF, like Aflac, FAF, those of you that say FAF, when were these FOF models introduced? The first model is Model 130 that you've seen on this channel a lot. The Model 332, and last but not least, the Models 260, 262, 360, and 368 models. What do you think about that one?
I don't even have a guess.
Hold on a second. Wait. Okay, just got an email in. Those of you that attend the premieres faithfully have seen our friend Hartvig from Germany pop in before, and he's been really engaged in different things, sharing some insights, especially when we're talking about the FOF brands. And I'm presenting some of the FOF sewing machines. He shared some really great insights. So I just got an email from Hartvig from Germany. Hartvig lives in Germany. And he's the one, if you remember, he won one of my impromptu contests. And then I ended up mailing him a really cool book all the way to Germany. And he apparently really enjoyed that book, which is cool. But at any rate, he just sent an email and he said, here's my assistance to help with this question. He said, the FOF 130 came on the scene in 1922. The FOF 332, as I've said before in premieres, like when I presented Heidi's machine, came on the scene in 1950. And the models 260, 262, 360, and 368 all came on the scene in 1960, early 1960. So that's our answer to question 18. And thank goodness gravy, we only have 2 questions left that Dr. Singer came up with. Okay, so question 19. What was the predecessor to the New Home Sewing Machine Company? What was it called? And when, let's see, let me see what he wrote this out kind of goofy. Hold on a second. What was it called before it was established as a New Home Sewing Machine Company? What else did Dr. Singer doesn't write very clear. Let me just tell you this. He writes like a doctor, okay? Okay, who was it owned by, and what city and state was it established in what year, is what Dr. Singer wrote out. And any of you like Paula's a retired nurse. So is Sonny. I think we have some other medical folks as well. They can probably tell us horror stories worse than this impromptu, open book, sort of, kind of whatever exam that Dr. Singer came up with for this premiere today. They can talk about the way some of their doctors write. Oh, I can only imagine. What was your experience, Paula?
My experience is absolutely, it is way more, the real life thing was way more difficult than these questions. No one's health is at risk. My job as a moderator, maybe. But when you have a patient on the table, you have to keep your head about you no matter what, and no matter who has a meltdown. You have to be calm, take care of business, and keep the matter at hand number one. So it absolutely can be hell, but you just keep it straight, stern face, and get the job done.
Well, and we're going to get into this right after we get through these last questions that Dr. Singer wrote. We're going to get into some of your background that I alluded to on the Facebook post, which I think is absolutely fascinating. But let's wrap these last questions up, and then so I read the question already that Dr. Singer wrote, and he kind of had it chicken scratched like a lot of doctors will write. And I'm sure Paula and Sonny could talk about some of the chicken scratch that they had to interpret some of their doctors' writing. But the question again was, what was the predecessor to the New Home Sewing Machine Company? The answer is, it was called, and I talked about this during a premiere a while back, it was called the Gold Medal Sewing Machine Company. That was the predecessor to the New Home Sewing Machine Company. So kind of a cool name. I think I joked around during that premiere, and I talked about how can you not succeed when you're called the Gold Medal Sewing Machine Company? I mean, does it get any better than that?
I have a lot of homework to do, Scott.
That's okay. I do too. And it was owned by Johnson Clark and Company of Orange, Massachusetts. So an East Coast-based company. A lot of the sewing machine companies popped up on the East Coast. And it was established right around 1860. So that's what Dr. Singer was looking for on that particular question. Our last official question, question number 20. Which Singer Class 15 models have the long beak shuttle system? And if you're really new to the classroom, or if you missed some of those other premieres that I presented where I talked about the long beak shuttle system, you might remember, and Paula had brilliantly touched on this earlier, pointing back to that opening that I showed of the Chicago World's Fair when I was talking about our friends out in California that sent me their Model A made by General Electric. Y'all remember that one? And yes. I had to do a restore on that machine, and I talked about the uniqueness of the shuttle system being a long beak shuttle, and I showed you that long beak shuttle close up. I showed you how to thread it and all that kind of stuff. And so this question centers on that unique shuttle system that long beak shuttle. And if the audio is a little bit muddled, as it sometimes can be, I'm talking about beak like the beak of a bird, B-E-A-K. So the question is, what Singer Class 15 models? And thank goodness Dr. Singer didn't say, name all the Class 15 models that Singer made. You remember me talking about that? That long list of almost 30 machines that Singer came out with that were all Class 15s that had the upper tension control on the faceplate instead of on the front of the machine. And there was just a ton of them. And I've talked about that a couple of times in different premieres. So thank goodness Dr. Singer showed kindness and didn't say name all of those, because I would have been scrambling and I would have been reaching out to all of our friends saying, help! So the two models, any guess at all, Paula, as far as the two models that were in that Class 15 family that Singer put out that would have had a long beak shuttle system instead of, say, an oscillating hook or maybe a different type of shuttle system?
I don't have the number, but I have a friend who called me to make a house call on her treadle machine to get it running, and it had a vibrating shuttle. And I took it apart and oiled anything that was metal on metal, and I got the metal, the leather strap on the treadle, and I got it running. But I just
okay.
No,
Well,
I don't recall it was either a Sphinx or a Red Eye, a nickname. Does any one of those sound familiar?
Well, you're on to two very cool tracks. The one that Paula was just talking about that she helped her friend with and did the house call is talking about the vibrating shuttle. And there's two different types of vibrating shuttles. And you would have seen this when I went down to the History Museum to meet our friends down there and to look at those artifacts. They had some of the earliest versions of the vibrating shuttle, which are called transverse vibrating shuttles. And that track runs basically horizontal on the bed of the machine, where most of the later vibrating shuttle systems, which are going to have that barbell bobbin system or the long bell type shuttle system, those are going to be running from front to back. So I'm guessing the one that Paula helped her friend with probably had these two plates that you would open, kind of pulling one forward and pushing one to the rear of the machine. And then there was this, it almost looks like a silver bullet on the inside of there on a carriage. And
yes.
then it moves.
And a very long, skinny bobbin.
Yeah, and it moves. Those are barbell bobbins, and they move. That shuttle system moves very rapidly back and forth from front to back, front to back, front to back. Whereas the transverse bobbin system, and this goes all the way back to that 12K that I ended up giving to Mary Klein and sent it out to her for winning Bill O'Rourke's contest. Remember that one, Mary Bell and the Steamboat Captain and all that kind of stuff? And hers was a lot earlier version of a shuttle type system. And that had the transverse type system on it, like the ones that we looked at down at the History Museum. So, but this long beak shuttle system is going to be a little bit different than those. It's going to snap in almost like a standard bobbin case would, and it's going to have a vertically mounted oscillating type or rotating type, rotary type hook system, depending on the version of it. But it's going to have this long, weird beak system on top that you have to thread the thread through, like I showed you on that machine that went back out to California. And the only two that in the Class 15 series that Singer made that had that unique long beak shuttle system was the 15-1, the very first Class 15 that Singer ever came out with in the 1800s. And then a little bit later, the 15-22. So if you ever want to look those two models up just for fun, you can Google Singer 15-1 or Singer 15-22, and you're going to see those very, very early versions of the Class 15 machines that Singer came out with. And both of them, again, are going to have that long beak shuttle system. All the other Class 15s, for the most part, are going to have a rotary type hook system that are going to take more of a standard bobbin. And you'll see where I talked about in some of those other premieres where I talk about these bobbins for the Class 15s can be a little bit tricky because some of them have that little finger thing, which I think Sonny said in one of the premieres, almost looks like a long beak finger sticking off of that bobbin case. And some of them point at the 11 o'clock position, and some of them point at the 1 o'clock position. And if you ever order one from eBay or Etsy or something like that for your Class 15 machine, you got to make sure where that finger has to be orientated to snap into your machine. Otherwise, you're going to get the wrong one. And and as my father used to say, it ain't going to work. So just be aware of that as well. It can be a little bit tricky. So we made it through all of the questions. And again, I did not expect Paula. I would not have expected Hans or Bill or Sonny or this new person that we're looking at right now, and that Paula and other leaders are actually interviewing as well. They're interviewing this new person that we might bring on as an additional moderator to work with the rest of our team. I wouldn't expect anyone to have the answers to all of these questions, because some of these questions they require research. And even when I was down there as an expert visiting our friends at South Bend, Indiana, I've been doing this for 22 years. Some of those machines that we looked at, some of those artifacts we looked at, there was information that our friends down there shared with me that I didn't know. And likewise, there was an opportunity for me to share some insights on those artifacts that they didn't know. What do I always say? Sometimes the teacher... Finish the statement, would you, Paula?
Always a student.
Always a student. None of us are going to have all the answers. And anyone that tells you that they, in one of those Facebook groups or wherever, whatever circles you go into when you're not on this channel or you're not on the Facebook page for Cow Country, if you ever meet someone that says they have all the answers, don't buy it, because no one does. We're all learning together. As these questions came in, some of them came in before I was fortunate enough to have a leadership team working with me and helping me with a lot of these difficult questions that can come in. I had to do all the digging myself. Now, thankfully, I've got Hans as he can contribute, as he has time available. I've got Bill, I've got Sonny, I've got Paula, and all of us together can figure these things out. But again, I did not expect Paula to know the answer to these questions, and yet she blew us away with nailing a number of them as she kind of stepped out there courageously and said, I'll take a swing at it. Why not? So thank you, Dr. Singer. I say that tongue in cheek. Thank you, Dr. Singer, for all these questions you wrote up. And beyond that, we get questions from folks, what's the largest needle I can use with this machine? What kind of needle should I be using? Does it require a specialty needle? Is it, am I using the right kind of thread with this machine? What's the difference between wax thread and non-wax thread? What's the threading diagram for this model that I have? And by the way, what is this model? We get those questions a lot. What are the machine settings if I'm going to sew this type of material? What size motor brushes does this machine require? How do I service my motor? How do I service my machine? My thread's breaking all the time, or my needles are breaking all the time. What does that mean potentially for this model that I have? And the questions go on and on and on and on. So it is a challenge sometimes, but I love it. And I can tell you firsthand that I learn things all the time, both behind the scenes and also even during premieres. And that's the beauty of the classroom that we have. We can all be students, and sometimes we're teachers as well. So, all right, so that was enough blah, blah, blah. We made it through the entire exam, and let me say, not even grading on the curve. And that was not a graded quiz or a test or anything. But Paula did incredibly well because she persevered through it, and she came out with the best answer, I think, that any person can give behind the scenes when they're researching a topic that might be brand new to them. I don't know, but I'm going to do my darndest to find the answer for you. And I'm going to reach out to my colleagues, and between all of us, hopefully we can find you what you need. that's the best answer possible on of any of those questions on that 3-page exam, quiz, whatever that Dr. Singer came up with. So well done, Paula. Seriously, well done.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very tough exam.
What as I alluded to in the Facebook post, and we're going to look at all the incredible pictures. I'm going to zoom in on those. I've already got them opened up, I believe, on the Facebook Messenger thing where you sent them all to me. And you can share a little bit of details about those. And again, I'll start with the one that you sent. I think first it has Mary incorporated into the project in some way, and then you've got just a number of other really cool projects that you can speak about as much as you want or as little as you want about them. But
well, I don't want to keep you forever, so I don't want to. But this is where all of my hobbies began.
Well, before we go there, let me pause you there, because we're gonna get into those, so that because right now the folks are just seeing your picture, your profile picture up on the screen, and I want to actually transition eventually into those in just a second or so, so that folks can actually see those images of what you sent me of those projects, and then they'll have something to kind of tie whatever you decide to share to it, to those images. But take me back to 9th grade first. Take me back to 9th grade, because I wanted to highlight, and I think I did it a little bit, I kind of teased people a little bit with some of the information, but not all the information, about some of your experience very young, at a very tender age, in a classroom setting, in 9th grade. Talk about that and share kind of with our friends out there what you share with me. I think it's a really cool story.
Well, I was 14 years old and going into a home ec class. And I had already learned how to sew from my sister, who taught me, she was self-taught. And the teacher announced at the beginning of the class that, okay, class, listen, there are 27 students and 13 machines, and 8 of them are broken. Leave them alone. You're just going to have to share. Well, I did the math and knew that we'd have, way too many students for not enough machines. So I just buzzed around quickly to the machines, and whenever I had a problem at home with machine, 100% of the time, it was misthreading, something got balled up, gnarled up under the throw plate, something was wrong with something very basic. And I just unthreaded everything and rethreaded it and got rat's nests out from under that were stuck. And 5 of them, within a very short amount of time, were in working order. They weren't broken. They were just misthreaded and knotted up. And so I went to the teacher after a very short time and said, I just fixed 5 of the 8 machines, so we'll have a lot more to work with. And she said, you just got yourself an F for the day. I go, shocked, going like, why? Because I told you to leave them alone. I was so shocked that she wasn't appreciative. I just like, okay, so this is clearly not somebody you can even talk to. So I kept my nose clean. I tried to be invisible. And all the while, there's all these students that needed help with one teacher, and they would line up to ask her a question. Well, they got tired of it waiting for the teacher, and they knew that I knew what I was doing, so they started to come asking me, and I'm going, she got mad for me fixing a sewing machine. How is she going to handle me answering students' questions? So I was like, don't let her hear us. Stand in front of me over here. And it was just really sad that teacher would act that way. And at the end of my class, we had a final project to turn in. And my sister that taught me how to sew made me do everything perfectly. Or I'd take it out and do it over again. And it had to look as good on the inside as it did the outside. So I was pretty clear I would get an A. But she gave me an A minus. And knowing her personality, I very gingerly said, so I noticed I got an A minus. Could you please show me what I could have done better to get an A? Well, it's just not an A project. I go, well, can you give me something that could have been done better? Well, no, I can't put my finger on it, but it's just not an A project. So I knew there was no hope of getting my A minus turned into an A. But that, I learned a valuable lesson though, that, just some people, you can't please, and she had her own issues, and I just enjoyed my time in class doing my own thing, and got a kick that the other students were asking me for help before asking her, you know.
Okay, everybody watching this premiere right now, if you're already thinking along the same track as I am, again, what is the culture that I've tried to... Paula, let me ask you this. This will be your question 21 on, and I'm adding this 21 to the long list that Dr. Singer came up with. What is the culture in the classroom that I've created on Cow Country, the YouTube channel, and even on the Facebook page?
Oh, open door, always ask. There's no dumb question. You know, very well received and happy and eager to help.
Am I, even though I've been doing this a very long time and I've worked on lots and lots and lots of machines, do I present myself as the only one that can be the teacher?
Nope, never. One of your mottos is always, like you said, always sometimes a teacher, always a student. So that's, you know, your motto, and it's a good motto because we're all learning every day.
Well, what I'd like to invite all of you to do right now, and amid this long process already that we've gone through with Paula, and I have to thank her for her patience, because I think originally she asked me, well, how long do you think it's going to go? And I said, well, probably like 45 minutes, maybe longer if we get the gift of gab or something like that. That was before I knew that Dr. Singer had come up with this long list of questions that he wanted me to incorporate into this premiere. So I know we've been running a lot longer than that already. But the point that I'd like to make is I'd like for you right now to type into the chat what letter grade you would give to that teacher from 9th grade that obviously felt that they were the only one that could be a teacher in that classroom, and took a young, impressionable student that was only trying to do good. I'm kind of setting you up for grading a little bit here, folks, I am. A student that was trying to do good and did good, and took the initiative, and then to berate them by giving them a F for the day, and even at the end of the class, a project that probably deserved a solid A, giving them an A- just because they could, because they were the teacher. And that's something that I guard against significantly, and it's part of the reason that I feel so fortunate to have a leadership team that works for me, because I'm accountable to them as much as they are to me. And if I ever do get a little bit of cockiness, it's usually done playfully. I think I did that with Paula the other day. You know, I said something while we were talking or chatting back and forth, and she said, you know, oh, extra confidence or whatever she wrote. I don't remember what she wrote, but I really do try to keep a humility about me in the classroom, and this person obviously didn't have a clue. But give that teacher from 9th grade that Paula had a letter grade, if you would, in the chat. And I'm not looking at the chat. I have no idea what letter grade you're going to give them. But I kind of know what I would give them. And I would not, just to clarify, I would not give that teacher an F, because F means failure. And even all the schooling I've done, I don't believe that anyone, by definition, should be a failure, even in an academic setting. So I would have given this teacher probably a D or a D-, because there's still room to come up to an average, but they're definitely below average operating a classroom like that. And I think y'all would agree on that. Anyway, whatever letter grade you gave them, that's fine. And Paula, talk a little bit as well. Thank you for sharing that story again, by the way. I think that's a super cool story. Share a little bit about working on cars with your brother.
Well, growing up in a household of, there was 8 of us, 6 kids, and 1 income house, and we were used to fixing everything ourselves, or it didn't get fixed. And my brother was he could fix anything that you put in his hand. So he taught himself how to fix motors and all kinds of things. Well, when I had a car that was a $300 car, as you can imagine, when I was 17, didn't run very well. And so I had the alternator needed replaced. So we got a rebuilt one, and my brother said he wouldn't do it for me, but he would help me. I said, okay. So I'm sitting there with the part from I picked it up at the auto parts store. Okay, what do I do? He goes, well, what do you think you need to do? I go, well, change the alternator. He's going, all right, well, go ahead. I go, what do I do? He goes, well, you got to open the hood. And the whole thing, and I said, okay, so where's the alternator? He goes, well, what looks like the alternator?
Oh my
I said,
gosh.
how about that? He goes, no, that's the distributor. I go, how about this? Yes, that, okay. So I said, well, how do I take it off? Well, look at it. What looks like it needs to come off? I did. It was a very painful experience, but I did. And he also taught me to change my oil, how to change my spark plugs and make sure I gap them. And I had to have my own spark plug gapping tool before he would let me change the plugs to make sure I knew how to do it and could, like teaching someone to fish, to make sure I could do it later. And I even changed the brake shoes on my car. And in those days, it was really simple. Just pull out the cotter pin, slide in the new one. So by having not, you learn to do a lot of things on your own. And, that was very learning experience. I hope I never have to do that again. But I do love, in spite of all that, fixing things. So, when something doesn't work, I have to fix it or get it fixed or learn how to fix it. So it was a very, just growing up that way. And with sewing kind of went the same way,
I'll be honest with you. When you tell that story about your brother, I mean, he was hard knocks. I mean, you got to open the hood. What looks like it needs. I mean, he didn't throw you anything resembling a bone. It was like he really, I mean, that was tougher than this exam that Dr. Singer came up with, it sounds like. Holy mackerel.
It was. And it was so much longer than it had to be. But you know what? In that path, I learned the other parts and how things worked. And, along that something I knew nothing about, I had a neighbor that knocked on my door and said, hey, where's Vince? And I go, well, he's not home. Can I help you? He goes, no, I really need Vince. I go, well, what's wrong? He goes, my dryer's not working. I go, well, you want me to look at it? He looks at me like, sure. And so I went into his garage, and I looked at it, and I'm going like, I have no clue. But I said, well, does it get hot? And he goes, yeah. I go, okay, well, is the drum turning? And he goes, well, I don't know. I go, well, let's put something in there and see if it moves. And it didn't move. And I said, and I looked at the dryer, and I pulled it out, and I said, I need a Phillips head screwdriver. And he goes, he looked at me again like, seriously? and I take off the back of it.
That's
and
awesome.
I said, here's your problem. He goes, what? I go, see that belt on the floor? I go, your belt fell off, and the drum's not turning. And he looked at me, he goes, how did you know that? I said, I had no clue. I've never looked at the back of the dryer, but I'm pretty sure that belt doesn't belong on the floor. So that's just me. I gotta fix things. But it was so much fun when he was just sitting there and looking at me like, seriously? You're gonna fix it? It was like, okay, let's see what this girl's gonna do. Not only did I know what to figure out the problem was, but I made him look not like the sharpest tool in the box.
Yeah, not the brightest bulb on the chandelier, was he?
I just enjoyed that so much.
Well, and that is, and I know when I first was talking with Sonny about joining as a moderator, she doesn't have all the answers either. None of us do. And she said, well, my experience is somewhat limited and it's this and that. And I said, well, tell me about your strengths. And she rattled off a number of things that she had done where she had taken the initiative, just like Paula just described, and really gave that shock and awe factor to some of the men looking on saying, I didn't know a lady could do that. I didn't know that was possible. And that's one of the reasons, very intentionally, once all the dust settles with this leadership team, y'all are going to look at this leadership team and you're going to say, hey, wait a second. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I've given part of this big secret away that Paula and Hans and Bill and Sonny already know about, and I know about, that this other person we're considering is a lady. And that's all I'm going to tell you. But when all the dust is settled, if all of these leaders that are on the team right now give their thumbs up and we approve this lady that could join our team, we're all of a sudden going to have 3 guys and 3 gals on this leadership team, and that's not by accident. because I genuinely believe when you get a mix like that, that team is going to be unbeatable because all of them bring a unique process to the table, experience, like a lot of the experiences Paula just shared, which were absolutely brilliant. And more importantly, women, by their God-given creation, the way they're made, have the ability to use their brain bilaterally. Guys are left brain, they're stuck in their left brain all the time. Ladies can bounce back and forth between those spheres of the brain, left, right, bum, 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 bum. So the guy, you know, Bill and Hans and I, we're analyzing a problem, and we automatically as guys want to fix it. Kind of like Paula just said, hey, I want to fix things or get it fixed. So we're over on the left side analyzing it, and we're reasoning through, okay, point A, B, C, D, E, and the ladies have already jumped from A to E. And they're like, I think the problem, you know, I think we're over on E. I think the problem is on E. So I think that's, whoops, I just bumped the camera. Sorry about that. Gave you all a shock wave. That is the unique thing about having a blended team like we already have, but we're going to have it even more so between great folks like Hans and Bill and myself, but also like Sonny, Paula, and this other individual that we're considering right now. I think it'll be a super cool blend, and it's going to set us up even more for success when we get crazy questions, difficult questions like these that Dr. Singer prepared for this today. So let me do this, Paula. And I know again this has gone really, really long, and I actually have a customer coming to the workshop in probably about 25, 30 minutes or so. So we've got plenty of time to wrap this up. We're going to wrap it up right now. Look at your projects and just kind of walk me through. Let me get them up on the screen. Let's see here. Hans is sending me notes right now that are popping up on the screen, so I'm trying to close them as they pop up. All right, just give me a second here. I'm going to kind of zoom in on this and see if we can get these. All right. She sent me a lot of pics, you guys. A lot of pics of projects that she's done. So.
And you were going to be able to. I didn't mean you had to share them all. Just to take something if you thought something was interesting.
Yeah, let's go through them. Let's go through them rapid fire. Talk to us about the first one that you did, and it's. Let's see here.
That's my mother. She was a hospital foreman in the waves in the Navy. And that's just when I first started scrapbooking. And you can see it's layers and lace and photos and embellishments and die cutting. And I don't know if you are familiar with any of the things that you do when you scrapbook, but a lot of it's inking, stamping, die cutting, embellishing, found objects, ephemera, just, you know, all in a collage and a vintage flair that I wanted for my mom's pictures. That's kind of it on that.
A lot of different mediums coming into play then. Let me come down to the next one. Hold on a second. So the next one is rubber stamping. It looks like a gentleman's, who is that image of? Do you remember?
That's Edgar Allan Poe. That was international collab that I had with a group that was stamping, and everything was about Edgar Allan Poe. And that's just a sample of rubber stamping and inking and shading, and it was a book that we made all about Edgar Allan Poe. It was a handmade, hand-bound book that was a lot of fun.
Cool. Let me go down to the next one. I think so, yeah. Yeah, it looks like a necklace and...
Yes, I went to the grocery store and got some dried kidney beans, and I put some silver leafing on them, and I turned them into earrings and necklace for a friend who just had a kidney transplant. and I sent them to her. And when she was at her hospital, she was there for recovery and stayed at a hotel for like 2 or 3 months afterwards. And I sent that in celebration of her new kidney.
Super cool, super cool. Let me come down to the next one.
Scrub hats?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, those are scrub hats that I made. You know, you can't be very personalized in the operating room when everyone wears the same clothes and has a mask on and a hat on. It's all boring. So I like making scrub hats because you could not only have a comfortable, breathable hat, but it also showed some of your own personality. And with that, I started a fundraiser. I was in a breast cancer awareness, Making Strides for Breast Cancer, and I was doing a fundraiser, and I couldn't get enough money to be on the team. You needed to raise $75, so I thought I'd up the ante, that with every $15 donation, you got a free hat. Well, that year and 7 years to follow, because I had a gift with purchase, kind of like when you added the sewing machines into the mix for the fundraiser.
Yeah.
You went up. Well, I did that sort of same thing, and I made hats as a fundraiser for Making Strides Against Breast Cancer.
Nice. Super cool. Super cool. Let me go to the next one.
And there's a snowy tree, perhaps?
Yeah, with a moon, kind of a moon in the background, it looks like.
Yeah, that's done with your finger. The moon is with a white inky finger. That's just another example of rubber stamping, and one of those is this embossing, where you heat emboss, where you add dimensional white snow. And that's that one's simple.
Don't you love it, folks? And I talked about this when I remember when I did that little video thing, and you wouldn't have seen this on the YouTube channel. I did this on Facebook. So again, if you don't do Facebook, but you follow me on YouTube, then you miss this. But I did a quick video of showing all of the tags that Paula made to go with these bricks that that I'm sending out here from the workshop for all of our Heroes for History. Well, you know, we're talking about that, and it's just simple. Kind of like she just talked about what we're looking at on the screen right now with this tree and all that, and all of the rest of you that are, you know, to some extent not talented in these areas, this wide scope of projects that Paula shared pictures of, are going, yeah, easy for you, right? So let's go to the next one. Take a look at that.
Okay. And is there a frame slide photo?
Yeah, it looks like a little child and maybe a mom and dad or somebody.
Yes, those are Pepology slides. And I put a vintage photo in the center of it, and I rimmed it with some metal tape, and on the corner I put a sterling silver flourish to give it a little old-timey look with an old-timey picture of my mom and her firstborn and her sister-in-law and her firstborn. And I taught a class making those. So I belong to a mixed media group, and we all teach classes. We all learn a technique and teach it to each other. So it's an ongoing thing that, you know, when you find something new and fun to do, then you just share it and have fun together.
So in that medium class, you're sometimes teachers, but always students. You're always learning from other people then. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
What?
Yes. We make everything from what makes me do jewelry to painting to collage to home deck and handmade books. It's all fun.
So what we're looking at now, and again, just if anyone's joined late, we're doing an audio chat with Paula. So she's not seeing the images, but she knows the order that she sent them to me on. So now we're looking at a kitty cat on a fence, it looks like.
Oh, that was another international swap I joined from a stamp company, and I made a pendant from a domino. There's a vintage domino with alcohol ink stamps. There was like a fence and a gloomy Halloween-looking night, and the cat stamp wasn't small enough, so I had to use shrink plastic, stamp it, and then cut it out, or stamp it, cut it out, and then shrink it, because it had to be original art, so I couldn't just photocopy it and shrink it, because that is altered by artificial ways. So I made a pendant, and I believe there's some Swarovski crystal and silver and a pearl or something on it. It turned into a pendant.
Beautiful.
So it's a little art pendant.
Very beautiful. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
The next one looks like some sort of a lace place setting or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I can't find my notes, but I can tell you what it is. It's a paper called vellum, and it's which is a translucent kind of feels like parchment paper, like you bake with.
Oh, yeah.
And I stamped white on the back of it. I pressure embossed it, which you see the white part in there. It turns white when you take a metal nub and rub on the back, and there's piercing holes all through it to make, and it looks like lace. It's paper that looks like fabric lace.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful job. Let's go to okay, this one is, it looks like almost like a country scene maybe at dusk or something with the moon in the background.
I lost my spot there, so you just have to go, okay, next.
Well, it's very beautiful. It looks again like a landscape. It's got kind of a rich green.
That's kind of almost ethereal, kind of it's encaustic wax. It's where you take wax and a hot iron, and was the bottom green and the top orange?
Yeah, exactly.
That's painting with hot wax.
Very cool. And do you use tools or with your fingers?
With the little iron, the hot iron.
Nice.
So you melt the wax, you put it on the hot wax, and you smudge the iron around, and it's kind of like a surprise every time you make something. It's like, oh, wow, that kind of looks like a landscape.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's got some dimension to it then too, and some depth, which is really neat.
Yes, the wax goes up and down depending on how hard you push and how much you lift up.
Perfect. Let me go to the next one. This one looks like maybe Christmas ornaments or something.
Oh, badge reels. I made that along with hats for work. I also made badge reels.
Oh, okay. I see the tag on top now. Yeah. You would attach your credentials to that then, or something.
Yes, your card when you swipe in somewhere to get access. It has a bungee cord on it.
Okay.
So, and that's just personalized things, whether it's gems or team logo, like there's a Florida Gators one, and some with butterflies, and it's just some things that I made for coworkers.
Very cool, very cool. And each one, and again, what you're bringing to the equation here, like the what was it, the head coverings, the smocks or whatever it was that you made.
The scrub hat?
The scrub hats, thank you. You're giving individuality to each of those individuals in in that setting. Sometimes it can be so sterile and so muted. You're giving color, you're giving life, you're giving depth, you're giving individuality, which is, I think, is fabulous.
Yeah, it makes your patient smile. Something distracts them before surgery, and it'd be nice, a pleasant distraction for patients.
So this one has kind of an orange look to it. It's mounted to a board, and it looks like almost like a steampunk appearance to it with gears and stuff.
That is a handmade book, and it's made from cardboard. And I painted it. I would die cut out gears, and then those gears were painted with a metallic paint. It's paint infused with iron. And then after you paint it with the iron and it dries, then you add a rusting agent. And so there's it looks like rusty gears for a vintage-looking handmade book. That's a cover for a book.
Very cool, very cool.
With actual rust.
Very, very nice. Very nice. That reminds me a little bit of Lorraine's machine that she sent from Indiana, but I won't go there. So now we have another one, and it looks like it probably from a peacock feather or some sort of a feather, maybe?
Oh, another example is stamping, and I used some mica powders that you can't really tell in that photo, doesn't do as much justice, but they glimmer and shimmer, so kind of like a peacock feather. And then the other part is a puddle of silver embossing powder that you melt, and then you push the stamp into it, and it leaves the impression, and it's just a stamping and embossing technique.
Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Let me scroll down and see. I don't remember which the last one is. This is a beautiful necklace with somebody on horseback, I think.
That is a friend of mine from work that I went to a trade show for stamping and scrapbooking, and they had these little pendants, and there's a glass dome. You can just shrink your photo and put a special image in it. So I made that. That was another thing that I went to from. You go to trade shows, and it's kind of like this huge candy store, and your jaw drops of all these things you could make.
Absolutely spectacular.
I'm those things.
Absolutely spectacular. This looks like another earring and a necklace set, but it's very different from the other one.
Is one of them green on the
Yeah,
bottom?
it looks like a stone almost on the bottom, maybe.
That's some sea glass. A friend of mine at work had a friend that they went hunting shells and they found sea glass. And she goes, "Hey, do you know anybody that can make jewelry out of this piece of glass?" I went, "Well, I can give it a shot. I make jewelry." So that's silver wrapped sea glass with sterling silver bail, and then I made matching earrings with the Swarovski Kirshu pearls and bike phone crystals, and that was a gift that I made for somebody.
Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Screw it on to the next one. So this one, it has, they're on doilies and they almost look like cookies, but I'm sure that they're probably not. Are they chocolate?
Those are brownies. That's another breast cancer fundraiser that I did. Those are heart-shaped brownies.
Oh, yummy.
So see, there's pink breast cancer hearts that I painted with edible pink frost, shiny mica. It's edible shiny, whatever they use to make it shiny. So that was a fundraiser I saw. I made those to sell for a fundraiser for breast cancer awareness.
Fabulous, fabulous. And again, folks, for the record, all of this is incredibly easy. Not.
But actually, when you know how, just like anything else,
Yeah.
It's entertainment.
So here you have what we used to say in the military is a claymore, and they're always labeled with front towards the enemy, which always struck me as when we were learning how to set these up and set up the fuses and everything and arm them, get the little pronged legs on the bottom set up right. It was humorous to me that someone would be silly enough to point it the wrong way, but apparently that's happened. So tell me about the claymore.
I worked with a surgeon that had a notebook that was all beat up, and I said, if he had found it, and he just came enamored with this notebook he found that had been run over by a car. And I said, if you want, I can do some metal embossing and do something on that for you. He goes, "Could you? You've ever heard of the Claymore mine?" I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, I want you to write these words." And, so I looked it up, and he was thrilled. It's a surgeon's notebook.
Oh my gosh.
He wanted a replica of a Claymore mine.
So it's the motto of doing no harm, but hey, if something goes down, I'm ready. So that's awesome.
Yes. So that's an example of embossing on metal and adding, distressing it with some black paint.
Cool. Let me go to the next one. Good Samaritan. It's like a pink.
Oh, that's a funny one. Okay. All right. We had a hospital challenge and the operating room was one that they chose me to fulfill the challenge, and you had to use hospital supplies to make something. Well, the emergency room made these amazing flamingos on the left that you'll see out of some supplies.
Oh, yeah.
And then the operating room, there's only so many supplies. Well, you know what abdominal binder is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thought, I can use this. What it looked like? Kind of looks like a corset. So it kind of took off from there.
Oh, my gosh.
You know what sequential pumps are?
I don't. No.
They're pumps that squeeze and release on your legs during surgery to prevent deep vein thrombosis. Well, I dismantled some of those. I cut up some shoe covers. I used gauze, and I used whatever I could find in the operating room. And I also had some wrist restraints. So I got a little bit funny, and I decided to make a bustier with wrist restraints, and it was a hoot. It was just, everybody was dying. I was laughing making it the whole time, so it was fun. But everything that I made there, I added a few items from home, like some lace and this and that. But for the most part, it was an abdominal binder and shoe covers and wrist restraints.
Very fun. Very fun. Very, very creative too. And I'm guessing with the Good Samaritan logo there, you also did some good with it as well, and helping to raise funds maybe for them as well, huh?
Yeah, that happened to be a hospital week celebration for Nurses Week and Hospital Week on the same time.
Fantastic. Let me scroll down to the next one. And that looks like the same the same event as in the next picture, just showing a little bit of a closer up.
A close-up, yes.
Close-up
It
of
was
that.
far
So,
away, yeah.
all right, let me go down to the next one. So I've got to go back to the camera here. This one, it's got like gates almost, and it's got flowers on the gates or something like that.
Okay. Yes, I meant to put the second card. Those are cards I made with the die cutting machine. Those gates, you put in paper in a machine, and you put these metal dies that have cutting surfaces, and you crank it through, and it comes out to whatever design the die is meant to make. And I made 2 different wedding cards. I meant to put the second one up first. It was for an Indian woman that she wanted for her, a custom one for her sister, because the custom colors were gold and red. So that's just an example of, and there's some roses on there as well that I gilded with gold as well. So yeah, that's just 2 wedding cards that I made. Another part of my paper crafting addiction.
Very pretty, very pretty. Okay, yeah, I see the second one now that has. This is the one you did for the Indian lady. You said it's got like almost like a gold gates now.
Yes.
With red roses.
Yes.
Very pretty, very pretty. All right, and now we have. Are these more dominoes that we're looking at? Different shaded dominoes.
A class I taught with just different effects of dominoes. You can add. One of them has eggshells on it. Another one has glitter. Another one just has alcohol ink. And they're in stages of ones that you can layer other things onto and maybe put a photo on, whatever. It's just more art.
Very pretty. All right.
Sorry, I lost my page that had the things in order. You have to describe them. But...
And these almost look like an eye test or something. Different letters.
Well, I told you that I had some surgery, and one of the doctors I saw was a neuro-ophthalmologist. And as a thank you to him, I got 1920s optician's trial lenses. Have you ever heard of them? They're what they put inside those frames to see which glasses are going to fit better.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
Well, these are from the 1920s, and you can see at the top and the bottom of that frame, that's where you hold them from. Well, I turned it into a picture frame instead, and I shrunk an image of a vintage Snellen eye chart, and I put it in there for him. And then I also made one out of a 1x3 slide as well, and I stretched it out. And I made another thing for him from his association. He belonged to the National Association of Neuro-Ophthalmologists, and I made him a pendant with that as well. And he liked it so much, right when I was there and gave it to him, called the chief of his whole association to say, we've got to get this girl to make these for us and give them away as awards.
Yeah, I totally get that. Totally get that. They're amazing.
That was fun.
Very, very cool. Let me go. I don't remember how many more we have.
You don't have to. If you're doing, I'm good. That kind of gives you a very big snapshot of my addiction to crafting.
Tell us about this one. It almost looks like a pinwheel with different panels and stuff.
Pinwheel with panels.
Trying to think. It almost looks like a starburst on top and then jutting out from it.
That is a handmade art journal. It is for watercolor. There's watercolor paper on the inside, and I put it on, attach the watercolor sheets with repositionable adhesive, so you can watercolor on it and put it back in the book. And you can close it up, and it's just a normal book. But when you open it up and tie the ribbon around it, it's like a coffee table kind of open star book. So you can have your artwork in there displayed if you choose to.
Very cool.
That's a handmade book.
Well, you sent all these to me. I feel an obligation to share them because they're all spectacular.
It's fine. I just didn't know if you wanted something to fill the time, and you haven't had a problem for that.
Yeah, we covered
I hope I'm not keeping it too long.
No, not at all. Let's stop on this last one that I just pulled up, and it's an old style automobile, and it's got.
That's a stamped image, and then the next one I think has Yeah, it's just a card I made. It's a stamped image with an old vintage car, and the next one happens to have a vintage sewing machine. That one's related actually to our topic.
See, well, I have to scroll to that one on that one. That way we'll actually be on topic. So, oh, and you've got also almost like a mannequin on the right side in that one too. So
yes, that's for like a dress form.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I think we accomplished what we set out to do. I've come back to your image now, and really what I wanted to do, the main point of a premiere like this, and I did the same thing for Bill, I did the same thing for Hans and for Sonny, is for people to get to know and appreciate the unique talents that you are going to bring to this role of being a moderator. It doesn't mean having all the answers like Dr. Singer's test. You know, those are areas and those are topics that at some point, you know, are certainly going to come up on the radar for you, probably. And it just opens up your eyes and mainly opens up the eyes of the people watching to the scope of topics that you're going to be exposed to as a moderator, things that you'll have to research, things that you might just know. And it's just kind of like the other folks that have already been walking in those moccasins. They'll get one person that brings something to them and it's totally new. And then down the road, a couple of days, months, whatever, all of a sudden they'll get the same question that pops up again and again and again. And then all of a sudden what was new, it's familiar. So I think, especially with the creative talent that you bring, that we just had a chance to, in a mini way, showcase, you know, your addiction, as you call it. I would call it your talents and your gifts to be able to go into these different mediums and create beautiful things. I think will be a huge resource to the team, because some of us are more geared towards the mechanics, the engineering, optimizing, that sort of thing, and we don't step into that space as much in the creative realm as much as you do. And that'll be a great thing to bring to the table and to be able to complement, especially if we get questions where someone has a machine, but they're looking for ways and outlets to use that machine, or they're looking for a broader sweep in other mediums. And that's why part of the reason I've been encouraging folks to post things on Facebook that are not specific to sewing. You know, big electric boats that are in Norway now, or whatever it is, or that one that Bill posted that relates to finding something at a garage sale or rummage sale that all of a sudden we discover has incredible antiquity value and is an artifact. So, you know, we're starting to widen our step a little bit and opening up the door to things that are not always going to be pinpoint sewing machine, but relate to that same space and that same field of creative projects that people might want to expand into. And I think you'll be a wonderful resource in that area as well. So,
well, thank you very much.
So what did you learn from this experience, other than next time don't answer your phones?
Well, I learned that there's so much that's going to be thrown at you. There's this way more in-depth questions than I thought that somebody would expect an answer on. I thought that most people, that's just kind of like you alluded to, saying you need to go to Google. You know, when somebody wants very, very specific answers for things that they know you probably don't know, but it's something that someone just needs a help. They're in the middle of something, and can you help me with this? Rather than, like you said, being someone's servant, and, you know. So there's got to be a really nice blend of helping somebody and then helping them help themselves, teaching them to fish.
Well, exactly. And Google is a great resource, but Google is like any tool. Depending on the words that you use, depending on the search strings that you use, some of these folks may be using the wrong words, or they may not know what the words are exactly, and they're using words that are directing them down other rabbit holes. So we may be able to help them as simply as saying, okay, what you sent us a picture of is not what you called it. This is what it's actually called. And by Googling that word of that object, whatever it is, you're going to find what you're looking for. Otherwise, reach back out to us and we'll try to be a resource. But I think now that you know what it is, now that you know what it's called, you're going to be able to find the answer that you're looking for. And so let us know let us know what you found out. We already know, but let us know what you found out. And it goes back to way back when, and I'll kind of wrap it up this way, and then we'll ring the bell and call this to a conclusion. But when I had started doing this about 22 years ago, I was going out and visiting a lot of people in their homes, because a lot of these people were sons and daughters and grandkids that had inherited something sewing related. And at that point, I was about as new to VSM as Hans was when I brought him on as a moderator just a little bit over a year ago. And so this one lady calls me and she's super excited, and she's local. She's only like maybe a half a mile from my location at the time. And she says, I found the most interesting miniature sewing machine, and I even had a neighbor look at it, and they think it's probably real valuable and very, very rare. And we found your information because you ran an ad. At that time, I was running counter ads with the metal recycling people, because they were going out and picking up a lot of these great machines, and they were crushing them and destroying them for the value of the metal. And they were running ads in the local newspaper. So I started running a counter ad against them saying, don't give it to the scrap people, sell it to me for cash. And so I started getting a lot of these people contacting me. Well, this is one of those people that contacted me. So I'm really intrigued, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm pretty new to this stuff, but a miniature sewing machine does sound super duper cool. And so I go over to her house, and she invites me in, and she almost ushers me in, kind of guiding me like, okay, I don't want you to get lost. I want to take you to this incredibly rare object that I've come across, and you're going to go nuts over it. And I zero in on it with my eyes, and I think, that's not a sewing machine. That's a buttonholer that you would attach to a sewing machine.
I love it.
I'm not making it up. I look at that and I said, well, it is really cool, but this is not a miniature sewing machine. This is a buttonholer. And she said, well, I figured it was something unique, but what are these little silver things that have like little bumps all over them, and they're almost like the little cutting? I said, those are the cams for the buttonholer, because that buttonholer can generate some fancy stitching as well, and but it does have value. She said, well, is it worth like a couple $100? I said, no, ma'am. I said it's probably worth about $25. I'm sorry to tell you that, but those are fairly common. So.
But you did a wonderful deed and made a house call.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely did. Well, Paula, I am so excited to have you as part of the team. I appreciate you humoring Dr. Singer with that long litany of questions. Again, I think for questions like that, none of us would have had all the answers, and I think you held your ground like a trooper and went after the ones you wanted to, and reached out to your colleagues and did all the other things that show wisdom, I think, when you're facing a question that you don't have the answer to. And I'm sure you did that when you were a very early nurse as well, when you were learning the field of nursing before you became a go-to person from your experience, and readily could help other folks out as well. So, but I know you're going to be a great resource, and all the creative stuff that you see as common and basic and ordinary and everything, I know as folks get to see it, and eventually, hopefully, as you step into, like Sonny just did too, as an editor role, and you're able to post some of these projects that you're involved with as well, people are just going to be blown away by your gifts and talents. So welcome aboard, and thank you for your willingness to serve in this role. Whatever time you can give, we'll be grateful for, and I know you're going to be able to fill a lot of those gaps, and otherwise it would be they'd be gaps without the special gifts that you bring. So,
well, I'm honored you invited me, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
All right. Well, folks, we're gonna sign off with Paula now, and I'm gonna see if I have time to squeak a little bit out of this 1948 201-2 before the customer shows up to pick it up. And again, make sure if you haven't looked at that post that Paula did, we're kind of announcing that she stepped into this role. Make sure you stop by there and send a note to her. Tell her thanks so much, especially after hearing the stuff that she's going to have to be dealing with and managing. with all those questions that are direct samples of what we've gotten as questions from people over the years that have been coming to Facebook. So she's going to have her hands full, but thankfully we can share that weight with this team. So take care, Paula. Have a great weekend. And if you didn't get some Oreos yet, since this weekend we're looking at Oreos, grab some Oreos.
All right. This is National Oreo Day or Week?
It's National Saturday is National Oreo Day. So, but I'm always, you know me by now with the Husqvarna on the bed and all that. I'm always celebrating Oreos, and I've even had some of the folks that have sent me Oreos to the workshop knowing that I love them. So that just means I have to walk that causeway down by the water even more to burn all those Oreos off. So
okay, well, don't fall in that causeway with those fishermen, ice fishermen.
yeah, exactly. All right, well, you take care, kiddo. Thanks so much. Welcome aboard, and thanks again in advance for those questions, some of which, who knows, maybe one of the first questions you handle will be one of those ones that Dr. Singer put on that list, and you're like, I know the answer to that. So have fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, have fun, okay? Yep, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that is Paula Noel. What a treasure. All of our leaders are treasures, in my opinion. And I do understand the wisdom of, and I'll come on to this shot a little bit to show Dr. Singer. I do understand the wisdom of what Dr. Singer was trying to highlight. And he was trying to highlight that mantra that I say over and over and over and over and over again. And that is, sometimes a teacher, always a student. Now, as we were going through Paula's artwork, and even part of that impromptu exam, you saw her step forward into a teacher role sometimes, talking about those incredible art projects that she did, and then sometimes taking a step back and recognizing that she was a student and she had to look to other folks, whether it's myself or any of the other folks on the team, or in some cases we had people reach out that aren't even on the leadership team that offered help to us on some of those questions that Dr. Singer had put on that exam. So the message through this premiere, hopefully you've gotten it, is that we can always learn. We can always learn new things. We inevitably are going to have to learn new things. And sometimes they're pleasant, sometimes they're a little bit more uncomfortable. I think at different points you could hear Paula kind of like, oh, geez, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Not as bad as her brother teaching her auto mechanics. That sounded pretty harsh. But she was a trooper. She made it through it with shining colors, just as she did at that tender age in 9th grade when she got a rebuke, I guess is the only word I can come up with. She got a rebuke from a teacher that obviously thought more highly of himself than he should have, and didn't recognize that it was okay for him to be a student and to learn from his students in showing that those machines that that teacher thought were broken could be brought back online and be a resource to that teacher's class. I think that illustrates a very poor teacher, and hopefully as I step into my teaching role on this channel and on Facebook, and the other leaders do as well, that you'll see that they're not afraid to admit that they're sometimes a student, quite often a student, and that's okay. So God bless. I'm not going to delve into this machine on camera. I will delve into it as I originally planned off camera, and just wish Paula the very best, and thank you all in advance for making her feel welcome as she's taken on this role. Okay? And I will leave with a fun quote that actually came by way of Emma from Florida. If I kind of shoot up to it real quick, you'll see the quote. And all of us have our storms in life. I've talked about that before. We're all going to have storms in life, but the key is that we don't let that storm inside of us. We're going to go through the storm, but the storm doesn't have to be inside of us. And this quote is spot on. Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And I think even in spite of some of the difficulties of that quiz that Dr. Singer came up with, Paula demonstrated that she could dance through that storm as well. So again, congratulations, Paula. And we may be announcing soon another moderator that's coming on board as well. Again, that will even out this leadership team with 3 ladies, 3 guys, and I think that makes us all the stronger with that diversity, with that balance, with all those talents coming together. So take care, everybody. Stay tuned for other great premieres like this, where you can see my reflection on the screen on the computer. Yeah. And we made this whole thing without any music. How is that possible? Well, I'll give the music of a bell ringing, and that'll wrap this up. Class is dismissed. Take care, everybody. Bye.